Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I'm here today with Rachel Martin. She is the founder of Finding Joy. And if you're somebody who likes joy in your life, like I do, then you're going to want to listen to this episode. You're going to want to listen to this episode because we're going to talk about the process of finding joy. And in that, I think you all know on your own path to finding joy that there have been some rough edges. And maybe if you were willing to go there, you were able to really dive into those rough edges and come out the other side in a more expansive and more connected place to who you are. And I like to think, I believe that the core of who we all are is this essence of peace, love, and joy from our own perspective. And so, Rachel, do you want to give us a quick little snippet about what it is that you do?
I would. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat. And yeah, I guess joy is my thing because I started the website Finding Joy. This is strange. It's almost 20 years. I tell people that I've been writing online now for almost 2 decades, which is really surprising to me, like how quickly time goes. And yeah, I started finding joy, and I started in a time where I didn't know where joy was. And in the process, finding joy has become, I would say, a global brand, a global site. I reach people all over the world. I have a Facebook page that's right now, I'm just honored with it. It's got over 1.1 million people that have followed it over the years. So, which is, I just feel blessed by it because I get to do what I love and share light to this world. And in the process, I've written 3 books and spoken worldwide and have lived a messy, messy, joy filled life that I share with the world.
I love this.
Mm.
Years ago, if all my old posts were still on my Instagram, you would see a lot of them with the hashtag finding joy. These moments, I used to say to people, I had this period where people perceived that I was really happy all the time.
Mhm.
Internally, like there was a lot of stuff repressed, and I didn't know that I wasn't necessarily happy. But people would say, how do you stay like cheerful all the time? And I'd say I focus on the little things because the big things were always
Mm.
way too much. So, and I know in my hashtag finding joy Instagram feed, it was all about these little things, these little moments, like a squashed doggy bag in the street in the shape of a heart. Like a little, like totally weird thing that I would see
Mhm.
the heart, or it would be like playing with the snapdragon flowers. Do you remember
Mhm.
doing those? Like they were
Mhm.
puppets, like taking
Mhm.
one of those and just like, rah, 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 like little things that would give me this access to joy that I didn't really have much access to my joy. And so it was like I was always clinging for those little things. So I think we were probably destined to meet just because I was trying
Love it.
finding joy and hashtagging it and
I had hashtag little things matter during that time. So, yeah, it was all about the little things. So when you were saying that, I'm like, "Oh, it's kismet. We are destined."
that is funny. Okay,
Mhm.
so well, you have a story, and one of the things about life and as we evolve, I think people think it's very linear. Like, oh, once I'm here at point A and once I get to point B, then everything's going to be great and everything's going to be solved and everything's going to be fine. And in my 52 years, I have realized it doesn't quite work that way. And one of the things I do notice is it's kind of like this spiral. It's like you're down at this bottom and you go up and you kind of revisit some of the same things over and over, but your perspective is different and
Mhm.
your ability to move through it is different. And so I'd love to share your stories about moving through the messy stuff and how it has shifted for you as time has evolved. So, shall we start with the messy, messy?
We can start with the messy. I always tell people that I live a public or private public life or whatever it is, because as a writer online, especially in the early days, my life got really messy. So, probably about 15 years ago when I started, I was in my first marriage and I was incredibly stuck and in deep, like ridiculously deep financial issues. And I didn't realize how finances could be used in a way that's manipulative and controlling. And there was this point in my life where I was so stuck, and this is where the finding joy came before I ended up getting divorced. That I remember driving down, I lived in Minnesota. I was driving down a winter road, and it was the middle of winter. And in Minnesota in the middle of the winter, it is bitterly cold, and sometimes the wind will just whip. It'll come from the Arctic and it will cover the road. And I can remember driving down this roadway, and life was I was apathetic in some ways. And I remember hearing, "You have to choose." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And the road in front of me, I couldn't see the road because the snow was covering it. So it was this weird thing that I thought I was skirting on the middle of the road between joy and bitterness. And what I was really on the pathway without me knowing it was choosing bitterness because
Mhm.
things weren't going on the way I wanted in my life, my finances, my marriage. I was lost as a person. And in that moment, I remember realizing you cannot run the middle. You have to choose to find joy. And that became actually the title of my site. And it was such a powerful thing because joy for me in that spot meant choosing to see something good in a life that was messy. It wasn't like happiness, which I love happiness. Happiness is such a like you have a birthday party and you're like, woohoo, I'm happy. But joy was this conscious choice. And in this conscious choice, I woke up to, okay, I'm going to start looking for the little things, start looking for the joy. But it also illuminated the areas that I tolerated life, where I
Mhm.
said it is what it is, or I would just kind of play the middle. And it got to the place where I realized I couldn't keep tolerating. And for me in that moment, it was I couldn't keep tolerating and this be the lesson I leave for my kids to see of what their who their mom was. And it meant doing really hard things, tipping over everything, dealing with because I had given the illusion of that everything was perfect. I didn't want people to see what was behind the door. I talk a lot about in my first book these masks that we wear.
Yep.
And my mask was so heavy, I didn't want people to actually know. And there comes a point in life where when you go through hardship or you make a very messy choice that all the plates drop and you're completely exposed. But the power is, and I realized it then is I got to choose what I picked up again.
Yeah. Okay.
I had,
Before,
yeah,
yeah, before we go to that point, I want to like go back to this moment when you started to realize you were choosing bitterness. Like
right.
there, you thought you were towing the middle line,
Hmm.
but what did it look like? How, like, what are the signs, like, especially now looking back, what are the signs that you can tell, like, that you were actually leaning towards that bitterness?
I really think the phrase, it is what it is, was the defining phrase towards bitterness because it is what it is removes all responsibility from me as an individual on this planet. It was really, I don't really care. It is what it is. And it was a way of numbing myself. So the bitterness part happened in the way of numbing. That is the only thing I can think of is like putting such a thick cloak of I don't really care. I don't really care. But all of that I don't really care meant I really cared.
Yeah.
And because I really cared, I was hurt. And because I was hurt and nothing was changing, I was becoming bitter. Without even realizing the numbing led down to bitterness in my and I saw it and I had this, ooh, it gave me goosebumps. I had this moment where I thought, I do not want to go down in this journey as being bitter. And
Mm,
it meant confronting all the financial issues where I thought this is out of my control. It's not my role to take care of it. It's not my I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know and it was so overwhelming. And it meant becoming a single mom and it meant everybody thinking, "Wow, she's in a midlife crisis." I mean, I really got slapped and put into the kind of this limelight of what is she doing? And it wasn't until years later where everybody else's timeline caught up to realize, oh my gosh, she was incredibly brave.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, they thought, what? She snapped.
Right.
Mm.
It's one of the things that you said, like, it is what it is
Mhm.
like it has a different emotional charge depending on how it says, like, oh, well, it is what it is.
Right.
Versus the way that I used to say it back in the day, it is what it is with this like sarcasm, this resentment, this like hate, this frustration, all of these things. And I know for me, you talked about that numbness. I definitely had that numbness, and it was like this stuffing down, the stuffing down of who I really was. But the other piece that really struck out, that what you said was letting go, like shirking responsibility. Like the finances, the this, it's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility. And one of the things that I see as people become more and more the wolf is they're owning responsibility at a deeper level for the experience of their life.
Mhm.
And I think it's so common for people to just go about their life following the rules, doing the things that they're supposed to, and just expecting it to all work out. And then when it doesn't work out, then it's everybody else's fault. And the waking up, people talk a lot about like, oh, people are waking up. But I think
Yeah.
a big piece of that, and people talk about it in the spiritual sense, but I think a really big piece in that is realizing that you have, just as you said, a fucking choice.
Right.
You can choose to go about life this way and experience life this way, or you can choose something different. And I just also want to say one of the other things that I know for me was a sign of bitterness was lots of sarcasm
Mm.
was a big one. But so that choice, so you had that choice and you're at that choice point and you realize, I think that's a big thing too, is actually realizing that you have a choice. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, this is gonna sound strange, but I really believe it. I used gratitude as a way to numb myself too, which
I get
people are like, "What are you talking about?" I remember my first editor's like, "Are you sure you want that in the book?" I'm like, "Yes,"
I did that
because
shit too.
in my first marriage, the finances were just it was abysmal, abysmal, and there was a moment where a truck was repossessed, and this is when I knew, "You have got to change your story," and I woke up, it was the middle of winter, and it was eerie. It was like what was there was gone, and the snow had covered everything. See, there was even no tracks. It was like it never existed.
Mm.
And I felt helpless, and because in that time, I had put myself into a very solid role. I was the wife and the mom, and I was doing everything I could. I mean, I had 7 kids. I mean, I was doing everything, running things, thinking I wasn't good enough. If I was only a little bit better, the money part would get fixed. And I remember in that moment thinking, like, oh, I should be grateful that we can get in it and retrieve the stuff. And there was again like a lightning bolt. Like, why are you being grateful over something that should never have happened? You are using gratitude to appease and calm a situation that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And that was kind of part of this waking up. I really think it was this gradual waking up that I had to, that this isn't normal. And so the part about I didn't want to be the victim of my own story. I didn't want to put myself into a spot where I was basically be accepting that, like, okay, well, this is woe is me. It's just happening to me. I can't do anything. I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be, again, the lesson I taught. But it also meant taking responsibility for an entire section of my life, becoming the sole provider, fixing the debt, fixing all of that, and accepting the expansion that I could do this. I look back and I think, wow, I cannot believe I did that because I took on basically the role I thought I couldn't take on because I was too full at that moment. I was too tapped. I didn't have enough space. But in order to change, I needed to say, my role is to fix the finances. My role is to change this narrative. My role is this. No longer, that's nothing I can control.
So you mentioned the feeling of powerless
Hmm.
before, and I think this is a big place where people fall into that victim mindset and whatnot. But from feeling powerless and like
Hmm.
it's not my responsibility to taking control and fixing all the problems, what were the emotional stages that went through that? Because, we always talk about the mess and we talk about the end, but there's that, like, when you're in it, like powerless, of course, is that place where you start and you feel helpless, but the going through the process, you go through a lot of emotional shifts. What were yours?
Uh, it's I had many times where I would have self-doubt, and one of the things I tell people is if you're going through that process is to have a person on the outside that can tell you it's not in your head. Because for me, I went through a lot of spiritual and emotional abuse, and so part of that was retraining my brain that, "No, this is not acceptable," because I would see things falling apart. I'd see my kids struggling. I would see because in essence for them, and I knew it, I was shaking up everything they knew. I was taking their foundation, flipping it over, and doing all this stuff. And I struggled. I mean, I struggled with guilt. I struggled with, am I making the right decision? Did I overreact? Because I started to have those, it was a lot of doubt. But then I'd constantly have to go back to, no, this is not normal or this is not acceptable. In fact, I had one friend, I always tell people, people see the big moments in a divorce or a big moment, but they don't see all the little moments leading up to it.
Right.
And so that's why they're always like, whoa, what happened? But and a couple of the weeks beforehand, she said, Rachel, I just want you to tell me your day. And I said, okay, because she could sense. And I started talking about my day, and she would just say, I want you to know that's not normal. And that
Mm.
one voice of clarity was what kept going through my head is when you're in a situation you accept it. It's like the boiling of a frog, and I had to learn to turn, wait, that's not acceptable. And the biggest emotion was learning to trust or have faith in a future that didn't match my reality at that moment. I didn't know how I was going to get out of debt. I didn't know how I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to survive. So I just thought I'm just going to do one day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. And then it became 1 week at a time, 1 week at a time.
Yeah.
And gradually it opened up to, okay, I can see into the future farther. But in the beginning, boy, it was, I'm just going to get through today.
Yeah, that is so huge. That's such a gift that your friend gave you. It's like that is not normal. And I know for me, a lot of my clients grew up with not normal childhoods. And
Mhm.
so as a result, that felt normal to them. So they've accepted not normal relationships, not normal business partners, not normal clients. And this acceptability has happened because it just is what they know. And if
Right.
it's all you don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. You don't know that there's more possible for you.
Yeah, I would say I think that's it. Or because the gap between where I was and what I wanted or what was possible seemed so big, it felt easier to put my head in the sand a little bit and go, it is what it is.
Mm,
And I remember saying that, like I would tell myself back in those days, if this happens, if the finances were fixed, then I would write and then I would speak. And I had it flipped around. It was really, I'm going to write and speak. I'm going to become a writer and an author. And that decision fixed the finances.
yeah.
It was reversed. And I didn't realize that in that time that I was, because the dream seemed so big. It just seemed, oh, it's impossible. And I didn't want to get hurt. That's where the bitterness comes in again.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happens, especially when you've been tolerating a not good
Mhm.
situation for a long time, and we see the thing, well, once I have this, then I can do that thing that I really want. It's like, because I don't know about for you, but for me, my history was that I would try really hard to do the thing that I wanted, and it would
Mhm.
get squashed and taken away from me, or it wasn't allowed. in whatever form it showed up, like whether it was taken away, whether I got in massive trouble, whether I got hit, whether whatever it was. And so there's this pattern of if I really reach for it, it's going to get taken away. So then it's this staying small and being afraid to actually go for it. And it is exactly as you said, the thing that you will do when XYZ happens is the thing that usually will get you out of the problem.
Truly, truly. And I always say the universe is very, it's got a sense of humor as well, because the thing I hid the most from in those mask holding years was my finances. Because I just didn't want people to know. I was so embarrassed. There's so much shame with money. It's just just pours
Mhm.
on, and I would just wear it. And I didn't want people to know. And the very thing that I ended up on national TV the first time was talking about money.
Mm.
So I'm like, and it led to all these amazing things, talking to state senators and uh, the state of Arkansas. They had a Smart Women, Smart Money seminar, and I led it. And what's interesting about it is me talking about money gave light to many other women who were able to talk about money.
Yeah.
And so where I was tolerating, say, stay small, I really think the universe is like, I don't think so, because we need to talk about this. We need to bring light to this space. And in the bringing of the light, you remove the shame.
Well, and it gives other people like it gives you this instant credibility and trust because n- it makes people feel small when they're going to somebody who they think is perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you, I don't know how many times I've written, I'm so just so not perfect. I'm not perfect. And you know what's funny is in a world of AI right now, I think the human element is gonna just explode because we don't need perfection. Especially now, we need authenticity, we need faces, we need real people extending hands saying you're not alone.
Well, and it's such a big piece of why being the wolf is so important is that if you are trying to be perfect or you're trying to be like everybody else or you're trying to be like AI can do that.
Right, right, exactly. We don't need more information. We
You don't
need
want to
realness.
be you don't want to
Right.
be like phased out of your job and your livelihood and all of that stuff
Right.
from AI. Well, you need to start stepping more and more into you. What
Mhm.
was on the other side of getting through the mess? What did it feel like? What did it open up for you?
In that first with my divorce, which was 2013, it opened up possibility for me. I ended up in those years realizing, well, I mean, I became a writer, I became the author, I became the speaker, all those things I had put off until someday. But it also opened up this idea of I don't want to wait anymore. And this fearlessness, I would say, but in a good way, because I realized that I was comfortable all those years being uncomfortable,
Mm.
which is very, I was just like, okay, but I was unbelievably uncomfortable. And now I don't want to, if I get kind of too, I don't know, kind of comfortable, I have to push myself to be a little bit uncomfortable because I don't want to fall asleep. I don't want to get to that numbed place where I'm not aware. And, I've gone through seasons. I got remarried in 2020. And in that process, I had a moment where I ended up going, I don't know who I am now. Because for so long, as a writer, I had identified myself as I got through this and I did this and I fixed my finances. And then all of a sudden everything was like, okay, I did all that, but now who am I? And that was a different type of battle than that initial battle because it meant looking at my own soul. And I was grateful because I had the space to do it and figuring out who I am now, not always defining myself by everything that I had gone through, which had kind of been almost like a calling card. Like, yep, here I am. I went through this. It's like the media bio. Here it is. This is what I've done.
Right.
And I knew I needed to like step into the next iteration.
And I think there's something to be said about stepping into the next iteration while still recognizing and knowing that your past is a part of you. I think there's this dichotomy of like some people are like, I'm going to step into the new and get
Hmm.
rid of the old. And then there are other people who, like, the other side of the spectrum is like, but the past made you who you are, and da 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 la.
Right.
I think there's this place in the middle that's like this sweet spot is like, I can continue to grow and evolve. My story is
Mhm.
part of that, but it's not like who I was being in those past experiences, not who I am being now. And that kind of comes back to that spiral I was talking about. It's like we relive and we go through these challenges and these growth places that are messy, but who you are being in, like, say, this next current phase of life
Mhm.
is not who you were being when you were going through your divorce.
Right. I like to think of it because I have a lot of articles, a lot of things that I've written from those days that still go viral. And I'm so grateful for the me that wrote them because the me now wouldn't have that type of perspective. And people will talk to me and ask me about it. And I finally had the realization. I was at a Tears for Fears concert, which is my favorite band, by the way. I'm just putting it out there. And I was there and I realized I would have been deeply disappointed if they didn't play Shout or Everybody Wants to Rule the World because that's what I love. But I was also unbelievably grateful for their new stuff that they played.
Mm,
And it had this overarching realization that part of my story that people know me from are from these points in my life where they connected with me.
yeah.
And if I was to say, I'm never playing that again, then I'm not acknowledging that's the whole story. And so I remember just sitting there thinking, "Oh, that is why they're probably really tired of playing Shout," like over and over, and yet everybody there loves it
Yeah.
because that's part of the story. And that's the beauty of it's not like I have to share everything all the time, but there are these bits and pieces that made me who I am, and I'm grateful to have a space and opportunity to talk about them and share it.
Yeah. And so now you're in a bit of a transition now, yes?
I would say so. I mean, I my kids are older, which is an interesting space. They're all kind of leaving the house and leaving they're growing up. And from a business perspective, I've been doing this for a long time. I've written all the books. I've written some books. I'm probably going to write another eventually, but I'm kind of in that space, which always happens after I've written a book of what's next, where you have all this energy, you've written the book, I did the media tour, I did all that, and then boom, it's what's next. And it's uncomfortable. And again, going back to that, I know it's uncomfortable and I know there's this lesson in there. I know there's this deeper space, this deeper unraveling, let's say, of what I thought life should be like. And I know that the process of it's messy. I can remember before I wrote Get Your Spark Back, the year before I decided I was going to run 1,000 miles, which, I don't know, I'm a runner. So I was like, okay, that's my goal. I'm going to do it. And in that process, in the beginning of the year, I felt like I was in the deepest, darkest woods. I couldn't see the sky. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I just knew I needed to move. And in the process of that running, I started to figure out who I was again. And I would say I'm in that spot again of, well, who am I? What's the next thing? And I know the only way to figure it out is to move. It's whether it's move in journaling or moving in meditation. I mean, moving doesn't necessarily mean you have to run. Moving is just to me choosing something every day that fills your heart or moves you forward or challenges you or something like that. It's choosing not to stay still and do nothing because I don't want to go back to it is what it is.
Right. Well, and that's that, going back to that apathy, that's that, like, I have to sit here and figure it all out before I take action. And
Right.
if you've
Right.
been in any of these transition points and you've actually transitioned out of them into something bigger, plenty of people have been in transition points and transitioned into same shit. They might not realize it's the same shit. It's like, oh, it's a new job. Oh, it's a new relationship. And, 4 years later, they're like, why does this feel the same as it did 4 years ago? It looks different, but it feels the same. But there's this place of you have to take action, you have to move. And it's it's the space of not knowing and being okay with being in limbo, just like I was talking about earlier, how I'm moving kind of, but it's sort of this place of limbo where I'm going to move to California. I'm going to still technically live in New York and do this thing that's in limbo. And we have this idea that we're never in limbo once we're like, we think that life is secure and stable and this thing, but we're always in limbo. But in a place of limbo where you're actually aware of it, there is a required of action. And there's a requirement of taking action. And when you think you're not in limbo, you're either taking action, or if you're staying stagnant, then you're going to fall and things are going to crumble again.
Mhm.
So even when we think we're not in limbo, it's the action that we're taking that keeps us out of limbo. But it requires movement. And you said journal, whatever it looks like. Is it running? Is it journaling? Is it, how do you get access to more of you so that you get clarity on the things to do?
Yeah, I love that you said that because I really believe each of us has our own process to figure it out. Now we live in a world that will have 18 courses that you could do in 2 weeks that will take 3 hours a day, and we get flooded with that. But when it really comes down to it, I honestly believe it's a journey of each person going to their own soul. And this being willing to look at the patterns that you like you were saying, people get stuck in that pattern, being willing to go, "Do you know what? Why am I doing it this way? Why am I choosing to do the same thing over and over?" And being willing to experience what it would look like to break the pattern. I grew up in a Christian home, and Easter Sunday we always went to church. And I remember one Easter Sunday where I decided, and this wasn't even a judgment either way. I decided I'm going to go for a run on Easter Sunday. And the only reason I did it was in that morning was because I wanted to break down the expectation that this is what I always did.
Mm.
And so breaking down those expectations, like we always do it this way, we always do it that way, opened me up to, you know what? I like that tradition. I'm going to keep it. Or I like that path. I'm going to stay with that. And then other times being like, you know what? No, I don't need to do that. And that's the part of limbo. That's what it looks like. It's to me, it's like people will say, I always want to find balance. And I'm like, no, it's balancing. Life is balancing back and forth. Like
Yeah.
my year was a year of duality. I always choose a year of the word for the year. I've done it since 2011. And last year, my word was for 2025, it was kaleidoscope.
Mm.
So, I mean, it was like, I remember sitting going like, what? Like, where did that word come from? And I just decided to sink into it and run with it. And it really became that you can shift your perspective just a little bit. And it's the same stuff, but a different perspective, different viewpoint, different, and it's beautiful. And it became a year of duality, soft and hard, strength and flexibility, yes and no. And realizing that life needed both. I
Yeah.
can't be one without the other and not being afraid of that.
Yeah, that's such a be the wolf thing. It's like the wolf is both graceful and powerful. There's
Mhm.
it's and we try and shove these pieces of ourselves like I have to be strong and powerful and I have to be, oh, if like you're trying to be like feminine or something, oh, I have to be soft and amenable, but there's this play of how do you have access to all of you at all times?
Mhm.
And when you have access to hard and soft, powerful and graceful at all times, then you have the resources and the ability to move in limbo
Mhm.
in any way you need. And I think we're trying to get out of limbo historically and have things be the same and predictable because we have shoved so many pieces of ourselves down that we feel like we're not allowed to have or it's not safe to be. And that gives us less access to be able to navigate any situation with flow and grace and ease. And, you're right. Balance isn't the right word. It's like it's riding the wave.
Mhm.
And if
Mhm.
you're trying to control the wave, it's just not going to be great. It's not going to be a great
No.
it's not going to be a great outcome if you're trying to control the wave, and if you're trying to always ride the wave the exact same way, like going to
Mhm.
church every single Sunday, then there's going to be limitation and you're not going to be able to ride the wave as well. So there's something to be said about accepting that we're always in limbo and
Mhm.
making a choice about the present moment instead of how we want things to be predictable. And so you're in this new place, moving into, like, a lot of stuff is changing, but your ability to meet it from this place of being open to whatever's there and accessing whatever you need within you is a beautiful thing.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm so grateful for it's that decision, it's that choice. Like you said, the thing about riding the wave and flow right before it. And what's interesting is when I write the best, I am in that state of flow. But in order to get to flow, I have to be unbelievably uncomfortable. I have to be willing to sit in front of my computer for sometimes it feels like forever in a battle until I finally let go and realize I can't control that. Like you were saying, the wave. It's like being willing to say yes to those experiences and the differences like that is this huge shift in my, I don't know, the way that I would approach the world. Because most of the time I would wait for, is it the right thing? Or I would second guess, self doubt. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should do this. Well, then I'm basically saying no. And so I decided I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. And my husband, he would always say to me, he would give me the question, what will you regret more? And that changed a lot of my perspective is, will I regret taking the chance or will I regret not? And, most of the time I'm like, you know what? I don't want to live if I get to be 80 to go, wow, I really have these regrets. I would rather be like, I'm so grateful I tried.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you said the self-doubt thing, which is the one of the things that was coming up for you in the divorce and moving through all of that. And as we
Mhm.
go up that spiral, we revisit these things. But moving through the self-doubt, you're just said that you're moving through it in a very different way. I love
Mhm.
that piece about what would I regret. One of the things when my clients are struggling, because usually the struggle is about some emotional thing that we have fear, some consequences. And I always say, in 6 months from now, what will
Mhm.
you be most proud of yourself for doing?
Ooh, that's good.
Because then you're taking away, because the emotion and the not wanting to do something usually is about some instant gratification, trying to get out of a fear or an uncomfortable emotion. But in 6 months, that uncomfortable thing that's coming up right now won't be an issue.
Right.
And so what will the thing that you look back and be proud of yourself for saying is or doing is usually a pretty good indication of the direction you need to go. And for a lot of people, like, even seeing that, they still can't do it because there's so much emotional content and fear about the right now. And that's stuff that's just locked in the nervous system and stuff that needs to be addressed, but it gives you a pathway.
Yeah, I think that it's because we have such a volatile, in some ways, relationship with time.
Yeah.
And we all know time is moving, but then we think time is short, but we don't want to mess up on our time as the older we get. And it's almost reframing. I've had to do a lot of work with my experience of time and
Mm.
seeing the way that it moves and honoring time for what it is and understanding that it's like the gift of being human. And I don't want to, I want to live it to the highest expression of myself and giving myself grace because there are going to be moments where it's messy, where I'm like, oh my gosh, really? I went down that path again. But the difference is now I recognize it most of the time. Or I have a friend that will call me out, and I'm willing to give myself grace for being human and stand up again, which is my favorite quote, which has been forever, is the fall 7 times, stand up 8. And I adore it because it doesn't say fall once, stand up again. It's
Yeah.
7 times 8. And it's also the presupposition is you're going to end up standing and you're going to fall many times.
Yeah. Yeah. And that thing too, it's like how many times does it take you to be able to ride that wave?
Yeah,
You
yes.
know? It's like we have this perception that it has to be the first time, and when we're talking about time, like the wave has its own time.
Mhm, mhm.
And how can we get better at catching the wave? And the
Mm.
more you go through it, the more you move through the messiness, the more able you are to catch the wave. And when you catch the wave, how does it feel to you?
It's like flow. It's those moments where and I've just learned to lean in, where you just know you're in the right moment at the right time, and I've actually learned to take a this will sound strange, but I try to take a snapshot of that moment in my mind that I can recognize this is a really great moment. There was one time where I was in Key West with my husband and we were sitting at a like an outdoor bar area or something and someone was playing live music and we were just sitting there with all these people and it was like that moment. There was no pressure, no nothing, and I said, "This is one of those moments." And I really believe that when we honor that we're in that moment of catching the wave, we're actually it's like a good thank you to the universe and to our own stories because it can be so easy to ignore when we get into that moment like yes I'm here and not have that deep appreciation so for me now I have this unbelievable appreciation for those moments.
Yeah. And those are the moments. It's not even exactly the moment we're looking for, but it's the way the moment feels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, as a runner, the kind of the runner's high moment. I
Yeah.
can't manipulate it. I'm like, "Today's the day." It's just a moment that happens where you're just where you and sometimes I've had it where I'll just be driving and the sun will be a certain way. It goes back to the very beginning when you said we were talking about little things.
Yeah.
It's to me, catching the wave is when I'm in kind of my own I'm in a good groove, but I'm also deeply aware and profoundly grateful for the gift of the human experience.
Yeah. I'm going to have one more question for you about how do people get in touch with you? How do they get your books? All the things.
All right. Well, most people find me either at my website, findingjoy.net, or they find me on Facebook. It's Finding Joy Blog, and you'll see me, my face there, and a little blue check mark because Facebook has verified that I am real and human.
You are not AI,
I am not.
not a bot, and you're not a scammer. So
Yep.
you are a beautiful human that is spreading joy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for you, like I've talked about being the wolf, but
Mhm.
for you, what does it mean to be the wolf?
I liked what you said about the gentleness and the fierceness. I think that to me has been the biggest part of my journey is being willing to accept the part of me that I fought so much because I was told as a kid, don't be so emotional. Don't be that. Why are you so sensitive? And to me, that is the part of me that has allowed me to write and connect with so many. But it's also being fiercely proud that is who I am and doing the things that I thought I couldn't do. So it's both.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. I love that. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing your story and your time with us. And remember, everybody, when you operate from the truth of who you are, humanity evolves. We'll see you all next time on Be the Wolf. Bye.